Hello there, and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And we have a guest today that's not been on our show before.
No, Dr. Don Betz, the president of University of Central Oklahoma, is coming on to tell us what's going on out at UCO. We've had a couple of presidents on from UCO in the past, but Dr. Betz assumed that responsibility about 13, 14 months ago, and we wanted him to come on and tell us how it's going and what's happening out at UCO.
Well, UCO's taking a larger role in this culture of this community. It'll be interesting to see what he has to say and what's coming forward. It's today on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
When someone looks at me, they looked at the disability before they look at the person.
Nothing builds esteem like having a job and being able to provide for yourself.
At Goodwill, we turn donations and resources into jobs.
It's so much that a person can do with a disability that's beyond our wildest dreams.
The parallel between repurposing things and repurposing people lies in seeing the value.
If you give me a chance, I won't let you down.
The resources that we are now seeing from Chesapeake, which did start with a financial contribution, has grown into other resources. They are willing to have their staff provide time, energy, expertise. Chesapeake opens doors for Goodwill. It is the right example to give to people who are refashioning their lives, and their future is brighter.
If you need big accounting firm expertise but aren't happy with the value or level of partner engagement from your current national firm, contact Hogan Taylor. Hogan Taylor provides national-level public accounting expertise with high-touch, local partner service in all areas of tax, audit, business valuation, and litigation support. Contact us at hogantaylor.com/The Verdict. Hogan Taylor, big enough to know, small enough to care.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today we're really pleased to welcome to The Verdict Dr. Don Betz, the president of University of Central Oklahoma. Dr. Betz did his undergraduate work at Loyola University, did his master's and Ph.D. work at the University of Denver. He served for a number of years as a consultant to the United Nations, primarily on Middle East matters, and spent some time over there. He spent 6 years at UCO in a vice presidential capacity, left, and recently returned in 2011 to become the 20th president of the University of Central Oklahoma. This, however, is his first visit to The Verdict, and we're sure pleased to have you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Very pleased to be here.
Welcome, President Betz.
Thank you.
13 months on the job. How's it going so far?
Busy, fast-paced. The institution, of course, right smack in the middle of the metro and defining itself as Oklahoma's metropolitan university. We're ready to connect up in a highly collaborative way with the metro area. Our colleagues are heavily at the good work of helping students learn, and we're looking forward to a continuing important role to play in this region.
I'm sure at some point you come in, you kind of want to open your eyes and take a look around and kind of test the gravity of the position. What did you find in those first few months and things that you might want to change or things that you thought were on the right track?
Well, I'd been away for about 7 years. I'd gone to Wisconsin and then northeastern state in Tahlequah. When I came back, many of the colleagues that I had worked with continued to be in positions of responsibility, so the cabinet was actually a group of people I knew. We were able to hit the ground running. We immediately started to do a number of things. Right now, we're in the midst of a strategic plan. What I found is a very dynamic institution that has grown quite large, and its size is important, but the quality is more important to us. And some of the projects we worked on 6 or 7 years ago, particularly what we call transformative learning, has now become actually part of the mission of the institution.
So you were with the university for 6 years, and that period was from when to when?
Actually almost 7 years, from 1999, at the beginning of 99 to almost the end of 2005.
Yeah, so not that long ago.
No, really, not long.
A lot of familiar faces still there, as
Absolutely.
you said.
Good people.
In the introduction, I mentioned that you had some UN and consulting experience. Can you tell our viewers about what that was?
When I was at Northeastern State, I was offered a leave of absence in order to join the United Nations to help put on a conference on Middle East peace. And I did that in the early 80s. After doing it, I returned to Northeastern State University and continued to work with the UN along with non-governmental organizations that work with the United Nations seeking peace in the Middle East based on UN resolutions. And so I was actually the chairman of a global coalition of organizations that work with the UN, and I did that for about 20 years.
Well, and you had an opportunity to stay at the United Nations and chose to come back to academia.
I did.
Why was that?
Well, actually, the connection back to the university was quite strong for me. We had done some interesting things at NSU up to that point. And secondly, I was feeling that perhaps the bureaucratic life was not something I would particularly enjoy.
Well, before we started taping this show, you and I were chatting, and you mentioned that you had actually known in your work Ambassador Chris Stevens, who recently died in the Middle East. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about what your exposure was to Ambassador Stevens and what you thought about him?
Well, actually, I didn't know him personally, but I knew of his work and those that followed him very closely. We will find out over the next several days and weeks just how important he was to the work we were doing in the region. But I think what was unique was how respected he was among the various factions that were vying for power after Muammar Gaddafi was deposed. And he was actually working for the U.S. interests while the revolution was underway. And his loss is a loss not only for the U.S., but I think for those that are really interested in the reformulation of Libya as a viable nation state.
Will you be teaching at UCO any of the Middle Eastern ideas and doctrine to your students?
Well, if the dynamics of the position ever allow me to do so, I actually am invited often to speak, and I do that on an hour-to-hour basis in particular classes or special forums, but I haven't offered a regular class in it yet. I used to do that when I was provost, but not since I've been returning.
Give me an idea about UCO. Number of students, amount of faculty, total employees. What's the number?
Almost 2,000 employees. We have about 455 full-time faculty, an equal number plus that are adjunct faculty. That's how we've been able to manage our growth. We have over 17,000 students, and most of our students live within a 75-mile radius of Oklahoma City. We have students from all over the world. We have one of the largest international populations, students from every county in the state of Oklahoma and many, many states. But if you put a stake in the ground on our campus and drew a 75-mile radius, you would find not only most of our students, but most of our 83,000 alumni. Very powerful, important, consistent presence in this region since 1890 when we were established as a normal school.
Well, you have, 1890 is something I wanted to ask you about. You're, if not the oldest, you're one of the oldest universities in the state.
We are. In fact, that territorial normal school, that building, Old North we call it today, is considered to be the iconic image of higher education in Oklahoma because it's the oldest building specifically dedicated to higher education in this territory.
Is it still in use, or is it
Well,
just a
it is,
museum,
but
or?
I actually, when I was provost, I had to take it offline because it was structurally questionable. Now we are underway in our new capital campaign and comprehensive campaign we've done the exterior now to make the interior a showplace for students, faculty, staff, and the community.
Let me ask you one more question about your student body, just a second. I know you have on-campus housing that accommodates students. What percentage of your students live on campus and what percentage commute?
Nearly 2,000 live on the campus. We're about ready to put together a new residence hall for another 500, pending funding opportunities. I would say at least another 3,000 live within literally walking distance within 2 or 3 blocks. So we have a large population of our students that, quote, are commuters. And I hear about that often in terms of parking, even though we have 6,653 parking spaces. But the important thing is that we serve the people of the region. We're a very important transfer institution. More students transfer to us and from us than any other institution in the state. And I think, as some people say, we're at the right institution at the right time and the right location.
You have a wide variety of degrees. It must be hard to try and develop specialties when the expectation is you're going to offer everything.
It is a challenge, but you know, some of the specialties that are being offered are really unique. I think most people know about our Forensic Science Institute and Academy for Contemporary Music, but we have new master's degrees just approved this last year in nursing education, absolutely crucial to the future of Oklahoma and the metro area. We have them in mass communications, public administration for people going into work in counties and cities and states, and forensic psychology, which is a spinoff of our Forensic Science Institute. Those are 4 brand new master's degrees trying to meet the needs of some of the adults, which we have obviously many, that come to school at our institution.
Let's talk just a minute in the time we have remaining in this segment about a little more about your master's in nursing education. It's my understanding that Oklahoma and the area has a shortage of nurses. And I presume as one with a master's in nursing education would be able to teach undergraduate nurses about what to do and how to do it. Do you find interest in that to be pretty intense?
Incredibly intense. We have a nursing program that is fully inscribed. We increased the numbers that come in every year by 50% a couple of years ago. We still have a waiting list, but the real challenge is who's going to teach them. So PhDs in nursing are difficult to find, but master's degree nurses are able to give us the kind of background we need for certain courses, and then obviously we use our PhDs in other areas. And we find this master's in nursing ed is going to be a great boon for the region and for the metro.
Don Betz is the president of the University of Central Oklahoma. We'll have one more segment with Dr. Betz when we get back. You're watching The Verdict.
The thing that has made the most sense for me is realizing that I am still an educator, and that is what I do at the Chickasaw Nation. I'm Dr. Amanda Cobb-Greetham. I'm a historian, and I'm Chickasaw. The Chickasaw Cultural Center is amazing. It is a very, very special place devoted to the sharing and to the celebration of Chickasaw history and culture. State-of-the-art technology, exhibits that are not like anything I've ever seen. The Spirit Forest is incredible, and you feel as if you have actually just walked into a forest with huge trees all around you. It's timeless, and yet it's sort of also representative of our time depth, to really just sort of reach through time and touch the past. By the end of the exhibits, you really have a sense of Chickasaw cultural and political resurgence and the extent to which we are a healthy, dynamic, and vital tribe today. Chickasaws have always been an inclusive people. This is something for the whole community and for the state of Oklahoma.
They lift, grip, and bear pressure. They carry our state through every season. Hands that simply by doing their job, forge opportunity for nearly 350,000. These are the hands of Oklahoma's oil and natural gas industry, working sun up to sundown for our economy, our future, for every person who lives where these flags wave.
When you have something important to communicate, it becomes clear that there's a lot of competition for your audience's attention. So how can your message stand out and actually resonate with your audience? Legal Graphics has the answers. The team at Legal Graphics will work with you to plan, design, and even test your presentation to ensure your message will be heard and remembered. Call Legal Graphics today to schedule an appointment. The readiness is all.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. We're visiting with Don Betz. He's the president of the University of Central Oklahoma. Recruiting underclassmen. Does UCO get involved very aggressively in that point?
Yes, we do. Like all of our sister institutions in the state, we are involved with recruitment. We had, I think, 2,300 freshmen come in through the door in September, and we have another group that will come in the spring. We recruit from all of the counties in Oklahoma. As I mentioned earlier, we have students from every county, quite a few out-of-state students, and a very, very important international student group in numbers and in terms of diversity. We have over 100 countries represented on our campus, and those students bring not only a cultural perspective to us, but also very important resources, because international students simply pay more for their education than Oklahoma students do. Are
you seeing trends among the incoming students? Are there directions that they want to take their lives and are looking for UCO to help them get there?
I think many of the students that are coming are interested in a set of skills and a set of attitudes in order to be able to be successful. So they might have a discipline in mind, but they're also interested in leadership, interested in civic engagement and service learning, many of them interested in health and wellness, and global and cultural competencies. And we try to create a learning environment where all of those needs can be met, or all of those interests can be met, so that when they leave, they're not only discipline specific, but they're also ready to be a responsible citizen and neighbor.
And since you're out recruiting undergraduate students, if an undergraduate student had a very fine academic record and wanted to come to UCO and was needing financial aid, would that generally be available to an incoming student, some kind of financial help?
There's a huge range of financial options and opportunities for
Can you
for
talk
students.
about that just a little bit?
Well, there are obviously programs that are offered by the federal government that are both grants and loans, et cetera. Our foundation generates private dollars, and we use those dollars in order to fund students who aren't successful in getting dollars from other places. We have specific scholarships for our leadership programs, and some of the finest young leadership talent in the state, I believe, ends up at the University of Central Oklahoma, because we've had a longstanding commitment to cultivating the next generation of leaders. All of these issues, athletics, et cetera, are all combined to try to come up with the right kinds of packages for financial opportunity, so that students who want a university degree and are willing to persist to that degree can get the financial help. And of course, there's wonderful programs inside the state, like Oklahoma's Promise, et cetera, that make it possible for students to persist. We work very closely with all of those agencies to try to match up the right kind of financial support for students to come to the university.
If you believe what you read, the price keeps going up for higher education. What are you doing to keep that down, and what are the numbers? How accurate is that assessment?
Well, unfortunately, what you read, particularly in the national press, is extremely skewed. There was an article recently in Newsweek magazine, and all the students standing there were holding up signs saying that they had $75,000 to $100,000 in debt. Half of our students graduate with no debt at all, and the average of the other half is less than $18,000. And across the state of Oklahoma, the figure is not much higher. It's difficult to talk about what it costs to go to school by percentages, because the percentage doesn't tell you what the dollars are. In fact, remains that we are the lowest tuition and mandatory fee institution of our peers anywhere in the region, and even across the country, because our peers are metro institutions, and I think the rest of the Oklahoma schools fall into that same category. But when the percentage goes up by X, 4, 5, or 6%, it looks like a lot, but look back at the base, and the base is really quite modest. And price to value, I think Oklahoma higher education, I know the University of Central Oklahoma is a great bargain.
How much research is done on that price to value? In other words, one of the things that those articles that you referenced were pointing out was that kids are graduating with a degree that's not going to allow them to successfully pay back that six-figure college loan in many cases.
Well, and those are decisions that individuals do make with counseling that you receive, not only from parents, but also from counselors and from the university. There are some people who want to be in a field that doesn't seem like it's a STEM discipline, or biomedical engineering, et cetera. Those people still can find niches, but there just won't be as many jobs as other areas. We're very interested in encouraging students into STEM disciplines, but also we're a major generator of education degrees, both undergraduate and graduate degrees in the state, and our graduates are successful in finding employment.
Well, it just seems to me anymore that if you've graduated from high school and you really want to go to college, they can get you in. And it's going to take hard work from there. You may have to have another job. There's a cost to it, and you may get in on some probationary period, but you can get in. Am I fairly close in that?
That's why we're public access institutions. UCO is mildly selective, but the idea is if someone wants to work hard and is willing to get in, then they have to persist. And what we find the challenge to be is students coming through the door don't realize what it takes to persist. So we work very closely what we call retention, which means not just getting them in the door, but getting them to graduation.
How are you doing in that retention program, and is it working?
It's better. It's better. Because of the broad array of the kind of students that we would have, being a metropolitan institution, individuals who are 17 and some who are 67, a variety of backgrounds, et cetera. But I think we are very focused in this area, and I have definitely seen progress.
What percentage of your tuition cost, or your cost of going to UCO, What percentage is state money funded by the state of Oklahoma, and what percentage is tuition and perhaps other sources?
Right. At this particular point, the state provides about 33% of our total cost for operation. And to put it in perspective, 10 years ago at this point, they were providing, for UCO, we're providing 60%. So there's been a major transfer of the cost of education away from the state and to the family and to the children, their children, and to any person who's seeking a college degree. But also, we have undertaken a wide array of activities and programs to try to find other sources. So we have a comprehensive campaign going on right now, our very first one in our history. And the idea is to mobilize our many alumni and friends to help with programs support and particularly scholarship support, obviously bricks and mortar as well, but to try to get funds from other sources besides what we always thought where the money would come from, which is from the state, which in fact is not proving to be true anymore. So we're about 33%. We often say that we are a public institution, will always be so, but we have to think in terms of funding more like a private.
Mm-hmm. Well, is the state actually lowering the dollar amount, or are they just not raising it from year to year?
That actually, over the last several years, there has been a decrease in the number of dollars coming to the Oklahoma State regions that they can then, in fact, disperse to all the institutions, and those figures are verifiable, but also the percentages dropped.
You know, one thing I hear on the street from people is, what about the lottery? I thought the lottery was supposed to put money into education. Is that money directed toward higher education, or where does that money end up?
Well, only a portion of it goes to higher education, and the return on the lottery from the beginning, I think, has been less than most people had hoped for.
From an athletic standpoint, we always seem to gravitate around to talking about athletics one way or another. UCO has a good record in the football program, certainly in basketball and in other sports. What's going on on the athletic side at UCO?
Well, actually, big changes. We have just moved conferences. We're now in the MIAA, the Mid-America Intercollegiate Athletic Association. It's 100 years old. It's one of the oldest in the country and considered one of the best. Most of the schools are just north of us in Missouri and Kansas, with one in Nebraska. This past year, the University of Central Oklahoma and Northeastern State University moved to that conference, and so this is our first year. It's highly competitive athletically. It's Division II, NCAA Division II. I actually really like the colleagues and like the institutions for two reasons. One is they're very competitive athletically in the full range of sports. Secondly, they put a very high premium on graduating students and student athletes. So our 400 student athletes, our goal was to graduate them as well as having a great competitive athletic experience here.
And the Academy of Contemporary Music, which is located in Bricktown in downtown Oklahoma City. Tell us the status of that arrangement.
Well, Scott Booker and the team have done a marvelous job now into our fourth year. We have a different performing venue down now in Sheridan now, as well as our main building at ACM. We're at about almost 500 students, and the numbers are beginning to taper off, but the interest is growing and the diversity of the students that are coming in. This is not just musical performance, but it's the business side of the music business, which is really attracting a number of individuals to come and join us. I have great respect for Scott and the work that he does. I think ACM will continue to be one of the hallmark programs, not only for UCO, but I think for Oklahoma City.
Don Betz is the president of the University of Central Oklahoma. Thanks for your great work at the university.
Thank you, sir.
Come back and see us.
Thank you so much for coming on today. Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back. You're watching The Verdict, and we'll be right back after this.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
In Oklahoma, we enjoy a high quality of life due to good, well-paying jobs. Commercial real estate professionals play a significant role in bringing new businesses and investment to Oklahoma. The commercial real estate community has come together to market Oklahoma's commercial properties nationwide through a free public website, okcommercialproperty.com. We are invested in keeping Oklahoma strong and growing because economic development ensures quality of life.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
You have children coming from a different lifestyle, different mindset. You have to open your arms and really do what you have to do to have that child become a part of your family. And if it's more patience, that's what you do. Kids gotta know they can trust you. And that's what we try to do with these kids.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers here to wrap up the show with Don Betz. He's the president of the University of Central Oklahoma.
University of Central Oklahoma is really a fine institution. Been around, of course, since before statehood. It has a lot of wonderful academic programs, and it is really pleasing to see that they're moving forward, being very aggressive on the fundraising side, and I'm sure they've got a successful future under Don Betz.
That Academy of Contemporary Music is something that's nothing short of extraordinary. Basically, when you graduated from high school, your local band broke up and you took off for college, and now you can take your band with you to college. But as he mentioned, it teaches you the business side of music, and it really is an all-encompassing program. And Scott Booker, who runs the program, the manager of the Flaming Lips, is doing an extraordinary job, and enrollment is just going up, up, and up. And they're located in Bricktown, so a lot of the performers that you see down in the Bricktown area are graduates or current students of the Academy of Contemporary Music.
Well, it's good to see them moving out from the campus because they are landlocked where they are, and they're getting some programs other places and doing a fine job on all of them.
Website information at uco.edu. That's uco.edu. And we have a website. We'd love you to go there and tell us about a guest you'd like to see on an upcoming show. That website is theverdict.tv, theverdict.tv. Next week, we'll have Linda Terrell on the show. I hope you'll join us then. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We'll see you next week right here on another episode of The Verdict.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.